Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Srikanto Matulo Yase Janni Sarmangala Janaka Shankarodeva Tamande Kunjarananam Chatuddasha Suvidya Suramateya Saraswati Sadevi Kripaya Yukta Jihvasuddhim Karotume. Under the edges of Sri Shankaravani, which is running its 4th year now, if I'm not wrong, Sri Sankara Mattham Matunga has arranged this many series of Upanyasams or lectures, as you may call it in English, mostly centered on Sri Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada and his granthas. The original idea was to concentrate on Prakarana granthas. However, looking at the appeal that the Bhakti Marga has for the devotees here, a lot of time had been devoted to Stotra granthas also. We started with Ganesha Mantraratnam. Interspersed with Aparokshanubhuti, even Espellan Manasolasam, Dakshamurti Stotram, Ramani. Sri Chidambaran is no stranger to us. Very recently, on the occasion of our Kumbhabhishekam, at our request, he had joined the editorial board for our souvenir, which is more than a souvenir, it's a book, a combination of dissertations on Vedanta, which I took pride in naming it as Shankara Ratnamala. He was one of the sutradhars in the stringing together of the Ratnamala. Today and tomorrow we'll be concentrating on parts of VIVEKA CHUDAMANI, glimpses we can call it, so that he prepares us for a full-scale discussion on Chudamani at a not too distant date. With this short introduction, I welcome Chidambaran. Thank you.
ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेद विभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। चित्रं वटतरोर्मूले वृद्धा शिष्या गुरुर्युवा गुरोस्तु मौनव्याख्यानं शिष्यास्तु छिन्नसंशयः। अज्ञानान्तर्गहनपतितान् आत्मविद्योपदेशैः त्रातुं लोकान् भवदवशिका तापपापच्यमानान् मुक्त्वा मौनं वडविडपिनोः मूलतो निष्पतन्ति शम्भोर्मूर्तिश्चरति भुवने शङ्कराचार्यरूपा। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादशङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। अपारकरुणासिन्धुं ज्ञानदं शान्तरूपिणं श्रीचन्द्रशेखरगुरुं प्रणतोऽस्मि मुदान्वहम्। सदात्मध्याननिरतं विषयेभ्यः परामुखं नौमि शास्त्रेषु निष्णातं चन्द्रशेखरभारतिम्। शारदा शारदाम्बोजवदनावदनाम्बुजे सर्वदा सर्वदास्माकं सन्निधिं क्रियाति। राकाचन्द्रसमानकान्तिवदना नागादिराजस्तुता मूकानाम् अपि कुर्वती सुरधुनी नीकाशवाग्वैभवं। श्रीकाञ्चीनगरी विहाररसिका शोकापहन्त्री सदा एका पुण्यपरम्परा पशुपतेः आकारिणी राजते। योऽन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसूप्तां सञ्जीवयति अखिलशक्तिधरस्वदाम्ना। अन्यां च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्।
गुरु युवा
Namaskarams to all present here. We all belong to what is called as Sanatana Dharma. The term Sanatana Dharma has got two terms, Sanatana and Dharma. What is the meaning of Dharma? While there are many connotations of Dharma, the etymology says, Yaha dharyate sa dharmaha. Dharati iti dharmaha dhriyateva. Something that supports, something that sustains, a foundation, an ayatanam, because of which something can survive. That is called as dharma. So when we say putra dharma, stri dharma, purusha dharma, it means that dharma is providing a framework which is defining the role of a putra, a stri, a purusha. So that larger ecosystem or framework is that dharma within which that role becomes known or defined. So that larger ecosystem is called dharma. But when we say Sanatana Dharma, the eternal dharma, it means that framework or ecosystem that is necessary for the sustenance of the universe or life in general. If life has to sustain or the universe has to sustain, the framework in which it will operate or it will be sustained is called Sanatana Dharma. Thus, Sanatana Dharma does not belong to a land or a geography or a region, it is universal. It belongs to all of humanity and all of mankind. Now, how do we know this dharma? Where do we understand this dharma? What is the source of this dharma? How do we come to know this ecosystem? The source of dharma lies in knowledge. Knowledge. So if it is an ecosystem for the functioning of the universe, the source of that is the knowledge of the universe. Source of it is knowledge of everything of life itself. That knowledge which is infinite in nature, which encompasses all knowledge, is referred by the term Veda. Because Veda, the root comes from Vida Vinda, which means to know. So Veda means that mega tera database of knowledge. That is why it is said, Vedo Akhila Dharma Moolam. The moolam of all dharma is Veda. So the moolam, the source of all the framework required for sustaining the universe, is that infinite knowledge. Now the question can come, what kind of knowledge is this? When we see an object, we know something about that object. When we do our daily activities, we know something about those daily activities. Are all this knowledge also covered under this term called Veda? No. Because these are intuitive knowledge. When you are born, when you are going out in the world, when you are interacting in the world, there are certain things which by default you will know. By your very nature, you come to know certain things. That is instinctive in nature, intuitive in nature. It is all within the boundaries of pramana, of pratyaksha and anumana. Pratyaksha, you can see a lot of things and you can get the knowledge. You can infer many things and get the knowledge. Veda doesn't need to say that. That is why Sayanacharya, when he gives the introduction in the Taittiriya Samhita, he says, Pratyakshena anumitya va yastu upayo na buddhyate. Enam vindanti vedena tasmad vedasya vedata. The vedata, the quality of the Veda, comes from the fact that it is telling you something beyond your pramanas of pratyaksha and anumana. Because pratyaksha anumana you already know. Veda doesn't need to say the same thing. So that is the importance of this Rashi or this Shabda Rashi called Veda. Now, what kind of knowledge do the Vedas tell us about? They tell us about two kinds of knowledge. And this kind of knowledge you can also logically infer. When we are trying to know the knowledge or gain the knowledge, 99.99% of our knowledge is about the world around us. We may call it objective knowledge, the knowledge of everything that you see around ourselves. This is what is needed to function in the world. If you have to function in the world, you need objective knowledge. You need knowledge about things in the world. This is referred to in the Veda as pravritti dharma or pravritti lakshana. The other kind of knowledge which is not generally found anywhere else, which we have not yet tried to go deeper in, even in the modern contemporary world, is the knowledge of the one who is knowing the objective world. So while I gain all this knowledge around me, what do I know about myself, the knower? That is called as nivritti dharma or subjective knowledge. That is why in the Upodghata of the Bhagavad Gita Bhashya, Acharya says, Dvivido hi vedokto dharmaha pravritti lakshano nivritti lakshanascha jagataha sthiti karanam. For the running of the world, for the sustenance of the world, you need both these knowledge. It is only because of this knowledge that the world is being sustained. Jagataha sthiti karanam. Now, when we look at the entire Veda Rashi, we said it is knowledge. We said it is two kinds of knowledge. When you look at the objective knowledge, I think anyone would agree to the fact that this knowledge has got no end. It is infinite. Because every day there is something new coming up in the world. There is something new that is getting up. There is something new that you have to know about. So this knowledge has got no end. That is why it is said, Ananta vai Vedaha. The Vedas has got no end. It will keep on happening. This Veda Rashi, at specific points of time, gets revealed to people who are referred to as rishis, because to them it is revealed. And they then pass it on to further generations. A doubt can arise here. When we refer to the term Veda, we commonly know four kinds of Vedas. Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. That is Veda. Is that all Veda? I just said now that Veda means all knowledge. So does it mean that all knowledge has got encompassed in these four texts? Even in Patanjali Mahabhashya, it says that the Vedas were Ananta. But over a period of time, a lot of the Veda Rashi got lost. Even though they were revealed, they got lost over a period of time. So what we have today as the text that you refer to as Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva is only a subset of the Veda Rashi that existed at one point of time. All that Veda Rashi is still there in the universe, and it would be revealed to the rishis from time to time. It is not that the rishis are something of the past. There will be rishis continuing to be now, there will be rishis in the future as well. It is only about whether the individual has rightly focused his or her frequency to tap that Veda Rashi. So that is one thing to be understood, that this Vedas or knowledge are infinite. They just don't get limited to the knowledge that we know today. There is still a lot of knowledge yet to be revealed, and it gets revealed to the rishis from time to time. Now we said Ananta vai Vedaha, but the question comes, what is the essence of all this knowledge? What is the culmination of all this knowledge? What is the real cream of all this knowledge? If I were to think logically, if I were to go in the objective world, I said Ananta vai Vedaha, it is infinite knowledge. Is it possible for one person to gain all this knowledge? That is why Avvayar said, Kattradu Kaiyalavu, Kalladadu Ulagalavu, because it is objective knowledge. Objective knowledge can never end. It is infinite. So it's impossible for one person to gain all this knowledge in several lifetimes. So to find the essence of knowledge there in the objective world, which is already infinite, is meaningless. So the rishis thought, what can be the essence of knowledge? The essence of knowledge can only be found in the place where is the source of knowledge. What is the source of knowledge? Now let us go to this process of knowing. An object is kept. I see the object. I know certain things about the object. The question is, where is the knowledge of that object getting created? Where is that knowledge getting created? That knowledge is getting created in me. While the object is there outside, the act of seeing is happening, but ultimately, that knowledge of that object is getting created inside me. So the source of knowledge or the creation of knowledge is lying inside. While the trigger might be outside, the creation of knowledge is happening inside. Hence, if you have to go deeper into finding out the source of knowledge or the culmination of knowledge, the rishis understood that there is no point in going outwards. They have to go inwards and find out where is that source of creation of that knowledge happening. And this begins the journey of Vedanta Shastra. That is why this Shastra of going inward is called as Vedanta. It is the Anta of Veda, doesn't mean the end of the Veda. It means the culmination of the Vedas. The zenith of the Veda, the cream of the Veda, hence it is called as Vedanta. So the Shastra that tells us how to go inward, to find that source of knowledge, that culmination of knowledge is called as Vedanta Shastra. This is one aspect, that you want to know what is the source of knowledge, and hence Vedanta Shastra helps you go inside. This is one. The second aspect, when we are all living our lives, many of us, if we have paid little attention to what is going on in our life, we would have realized that the nature of the world is duality. It is all between dvandvas. Like Bhagavan says in the Gita, it is all between dvandvas. If a sukha is coming, a dukkha is coming. If a jaya is coming, there is a parajaya. A success, a failure, a victory, a defeat, a happiness, a sorrow, it is all coming in cycles. The nature of the world is that you cannot have a world outside which is only giving you sukha. Not possible, because the nature of the world is not that. Once you have realized that this is the nature of the world, the next question comes, are you happy living in this world, which is going through these ups and downs? Now, what is the problem with the up and down? The up is always great. You're always excited to be in the up. But the moment the down comes, you are going to go to a deeper fall, because you are standing at the top of the wave. So from the top of the wave to the bottom of the wave, some people go into depression. That is what is the depression. And then again they rise back to excitement. Again they go back to depression. For people who like this, who are attracted to this, Vedanta Shastra is not prescribed. They need not even come towards Vedanta, because they are happy in the world outside. This is not the Shastra for them. But the very, very rarest of the people who give a thought to say, what is really happening? Why am I going through these ups and downs constantly, which at the end of the day is taking a toll on me physically, mentally, emotionally, in all aspects? Am I really leading a good life? Am I really leading a life that is worth? And the person begins to think, is there something between the top and the bottom? Is there a place where I can anchor myself which will not, or which will help me protect from this top and bottom? That person starts searching to a place where there is no top and bottom. The objective world all has top and bottom. So then the person begins the search inwards to say, where is that point where there is no top and bottom? This is the second aspect why somebody gets into Vedanta. So the first aspect is to know the source of knowledge. The second aspect is for us to know the place, the anchor, which will protect me, which will isolate me from the tops, bottoms, the highs and the lows of life, so that I can remain in a peaceful state without getting tossed about in this world of dualities. So the true search for that state of peace or happiness. These two aspects drive a person towards taking up the cause of this study of Vedanta Shastra. Now a question comes. We said it is all about knowing the knower. You have to know who this knower is. The question can be asked, do I not know myself? Is that such a big question to be answered? Don't we all answer the moment you are asked, who are you? Introduce yourself. Don't we have a resume, a biodata, a CV? Don't we answer in interviews elaborately on who we are? Don't we put out our bios and resumes on social media and say who we are? Then what is the big discussion on who am I? So here the answer to that is, while you are presuming that you know who you are, in reality you are not that, and that is why you are getting tossed about, and all the problems that we just mentioned that is occurring is happening because in reality you have not yet spent time on knowing who you really are. The question will be asked next, what is the benefit of knowing who I really am? What is the benefit? So we say that, we just said now that you are going through the sukha and dukkha. You don't want to be tossed about. There is a mystical connection between attaining that state of peace and happiness and knowing your true self. At the face of it, it might appear to be two disjointed things, knowing myself and attaining peace or happiness. But at the end of the Vedanta Shastra, Vedanta will prove that just by knowing who you are, truthfully, you have actually solved all your problems. Even in real world, we can see that. If you don't presume that you are something else, and you are truly accepting who you are, with your strengths and weaknesses, you will always feel much at peace with yourself. You will be much more confident in the world outside because you know who you are. You are not assuming anything about yourself. But the moment you are creating an image of yourself and you want to uphold that image, you are constantly under pressure. That takes a toll on everything, including your health, wealth, and peace and happiness. So even when a small worldly thing of just understanding your strength and weakness and coming to terms with that can give so much of confidence, just imagine if you truly understood who you are, what will be the strength that you will get to face the world around. This is the presumption with which the need for Vedanta Shastra is made available to people. I wanted to start with this background because the text that we are going to take up today, it is called a Prakarana Grantha, but I would say it is much more than even the Bhashya Grantha, because the subject is such. The subject is Vedanta, a subject that is generally considered to be dry, a subject that is considered to be going over the head, subject that is considered to be taken up only when you have crossed 80 or 90, or when you are in your final moments of your life, only then you think about Vedanta. So, the reason I gave this background is to say that Vedanta is not for someone to be known at the end of their life, it is for someone to be known at the beginning of their life. Because if you know Vedanta and you lead life, the way you lead life will be very different than the way you have led life without knowing it. That is why the earlier you know Vedanta and the earlier you get to the message of the Vedanta and stay in it, you will lead a more fruitful life and you will be able to explore life to its fullest. In short, I would say, and Swami Chinmayananda also says in his introduction, that Vedanta is the study of man. Yes, it is the study of man. It is the way to know what is the highest potential of being human. We are all born as human, but what is the highest potential of being human? What does it mean to be human? We have only explored a few dimensions of that in our lives. There are many more to be explored. And Vedanta represents the culmination of the potential, the highest potential that you can ever reach as a human is shown by Vedanta. So for these three reasons, for knowing the source of all knowledge, for knowing the highest potential of your birth, of you being a human, and for finding an end to all your sufferings caused by the sukhas and dukkha and the highs and the lows, this is the reason why you would want to get into this Shastra of Vedanta. Now with this background, let me get into the discussion of Vedanta. When you say the term Vedanta, the sources of Vedanta, it begins from the Upanishad. As we all know, the Upanishads appear towards the end segment of the Veda Bhaga. So it begins with the Samhita, the Brahmana, the Aranyaka, and the Upanishad. Because it comes towards the end Bhaga, it is called as Vedanta. It is the Anta Bhaga of the Veda. And because it represents the message, as I said earlier, which represents the loftiest ideals and the culmination of the thought process in the Vedic literature, it is called Vedanta. So the Upanishads are the, literally speaking, it is only the Upanishads that can be called Vedanta, because that is what appears at the Anta Bhaga of the Veda. So they are Vedanta. However, any other Shastra that helps us understand this Upanishads, that is built on the principles of the Upanishads, are also considered Vedanta. That is how in the Vedanta Sara it is mentioned, Vedanto nama Upanishad pramanani, Shariraka Sutradini, all the Shariraka Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, everything that is made or written with an attempt to explain the Vedanta, the Upanishads, are also called Vedanta. So in traditional context, three sources of Vedanta are considered to be traditional. First are the Upanishads that come to us from the Veda. The Upanishads are many. Some of them have even figured out 200 plus Upanishads. Some of them have found out 120 Upanishads. But traditionally, 108 Upanishads are the ones that are generally considered to be authentic. This list of the 108 Upanishads is what you find in the Muktiko Upanishad. So the Muktiko Upanishad gives you the list of all the 108 Upanishads. Even among the 108 Upanishads, there are 10 Upanishads which are considered as major Upanishads. These are considered major Upanishads because Acharya Shankara chose these Upanishads to write the commentary or bhashya upon. And why did Acharya choose only these 10 Upanishads out of all the existing Rashi of Upanishads? Because when he wanted to present the Shruti Pramanya, when he wanted to present the ultimate truth, he did not want any diversion or distraction in the form of any theological or theistic approaches. He did not want people to fight whether Brahman is Shiva or Vishnu or Ganapati or Shakti or Muruga. He wanted to say Brahman is Brahman. You call it by whatever you want, doesn't matter. So he chose the Upanishads that don't have any tinge of theistic philosophy. These are the 10 major Upanishads. Isha Kena Kata Prashna Munda Mandukya Taittiriya Aitareya Chandogya Brihadaranyaka. These are the 10 Upanishads on which Acharya chose these Upanishads and wrote the commentary on. There is a possibility that many Acharyas before Acharya Shankara also would have chosen these Upanishads and written commentaries on. But unfortunately, we don't have any of those bhashyas today with us. The only bhashya, the most ancient bhashya we have on all the 10 Upanishads is only of Acharya Shankara. Hence, that is all we can go to. There is no bhashya available before that. The only other work we have on any Upanishad is on the Mandukya Upanishad, which is the Mandukya Karika of Gaudapadacharya. Other than that, that too also it is a Karika. It is not a Bhashya. A Karika is written to explain a philosophy. So Gaudapadacharya wrote the Mandukya Karika to establish the principles of Advaita Vedanta. So that is why if you look at the Gaudapada Karika also, after the Agama Prakarana, which is the Upanishad Bhaga, all the others are his own composition. He has composed those works. It is the work of Gaudapadacharya. So when you look at the Bhashyas, it is only Acharya Shankara's Bhashyas that you find as the most ancient Bhashya. So Upanishads. Now Upanishads are, as I said, 10 Upanishads. Each of the Upanishad is speaking about that truth, that knowledge, in different ways. Why are they speaking it in different ways? It is like taking a class in a classroom. I am having 10 students in one classroom. They are asking me a question, I am answering them. My answer will depend upon the kind of questions they ask. My answer will depend upon the kind of students they are, their capability, their capacity to know the subject. The examples I give will depend upon what they can understand. In another class, I may not give the same examples. I may not use the same approach or method of teaching the same subject. So these 10 Upanishads were taught by teachers to their pupils or disciples in 10 different contexts. So that is why you find an apparent diversity in the 10 Upanishads. However, all the 10 Upanishads speak of the same principles to prove that Badarayana or Vedavyasa wrote the Brahma Sutra. So the Brahma Sutras were composed to prove that all the Upanishads are speaking about the same principles. Though they might be seeming to be apparently different, the content of all the Upanishads is the same. And what that content is summarized in the Brahma Sutra in the form of aphorisms. Sutra means aphorisms, brief phrases. And these sutras have their focus or the topic as Brahman. That is why they are called as Brahma Sutra. But the point is, the Brahma Sutras, and some of you who want to experiment can try that. You take up the Brahma Sutra. Athato Brahma Jnana, maybe that much we can understand. That is still okay. The moment you say Janmadhyasya Yataha onwards, you will not know what is this phrase talking about. First of all, it is only 2 or 3 words, maximum 4 or 5 words. Those words, even if you know the meaning, what is the context of those meanings? On what context is that phrase being spoken about? What is the connection of this phrase to the previous phrase? None of that will be known because it is already in the sutra form. You don't even know what to make out of it. So, reading the Brahma Sutra without a Bhashya is impossible. So that is why the second thing that the Acharya chose to write the Bhashya was on the Brahma Sutra. So the Upanishads, on all the 10 Upanishads, Bhashya written, commentary written. Now, the work that is synthesizing all these 10 Upanishads, on that also Bhashya written, commentary written. Now, Upanishads are there, but they are very diverse. Brahma Sutras are there, but we cannot understand. So what do we do? How do we understand? So out of immense compassion, the Bhagavan gives the Gita. The Gita was given by Krishna not for Arjuna's sake. It was to bring back this jnana, which was lost. That is what he says. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavanaham avyayam vivasvan manave praha vanuhu ikshvakave bravid evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu sa kalena mahata yogo nashtaf parantapa. This yoga, this jnana got lost over a period of time. That is why I am coming here to give the Gita to revive that knowledge. So the Bhagavad Gita is a revival of that jnana parampara. And Bhagavad Gita, I would say among the three, is the closest to what we can understand, even as a text. But even there are certain areas where you will get confused because there are technical terms. Because Krishna, he is not wanting to say anything new. He is going to say the Upanishad Sara itself. He is going to say the Brahma Sutra Sara itself, but in a format that the new audience will understand. It's the same jnana, it's the same vishaya, but said in a more palatable form, more accessible form. That is why the third source of Vedanta is the Bhagavad Gita. So you have three sources of Vedanta: Upanishad, Brahma Sutra, and Bhagavad Gita. These three together is what we call as Prasthana Trayi. So the moment you study Vedanta, you invariably will have to study these three sources. The Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, and the Bhagavad Gita, they form the essence of Vedanta. After that also many texts have been written on Vedanta. All of them come under the umbrella of Vedanta, because everything is still having Upanishad as the pramana, and they are building further on the Upanishad. So all of them are Vedanta itself. As I said, the Bhashya is a detailed commentary. Firstly, it is written in Sanskrita. The question is, how many of us know Sanskrita today? It is a sad state of affairs today that we have in Bharata, but we don't know. Many of us don't know the language. So impossible for us to read any of these without a translation. Translations have to be very, very cautiously chosen, because through the translation, the mind of the translator is what is told to you, not the mind of the composer. Any translation, whichever the translation it be, the translation always will reflect the mind of the translator more than that of the composer. So when you're choosing the translation, you have to choose it in such a way that it is written by somebody from the Vedanta Parampara. Only then you will know that the translation might be closer to that of the composer. So even from a Bhasha perspective, even from a Shastra perspective, for us to read these Bhashyas and understand it by ourselves is very difficult. That is why we have the category of Shastra Granthas or Granthas called as Prakarana Grantha. Prakarana means getting an introduction. It is an introductory book on that particular Shastra. Any science, any topic, any subject, if you want to know, if you want to get an introduction into that subject, if you want to know the basics of that subject, you always start with a Prakarana Grantha. That Prakarana Grantha tells you the basics of that particular subject. So the Vedanta Prakarana Granthas, many of them are composed by Acharya Shankara himself. Atma Bodha, Tattva Bodha, and many more. Of all those, this Viveka Chudamani occupies a special place, which is considered as one of the Prakarana Granthas. So, if you say that the Veda, right, Upanishads are also called as Veda Shira, Shruti Shira. So, they are the head of the Vedas. They form the head bhaga, the Shiro bhaga of the Vedas, because they are the essence of the Vedas. They are the culmination of the Vedas. So the Vedas are the Sharira, the Upanishads are the Shiras. The Shankara Bhashya is like the Mukuta on that Shiras, because it gives, it effulges, it brings more effulgence to those Upanishads. It shows the effulgence of the Upanishads more protrudingly. And on top of that Makuta lies a Chudamani, lies a crest jewel. That is the Viveka Chudamani. So this is how Swami Chinmayananda describes. He says, he starts with the Veda. He says Veda Shiras is Upanishad. The one that embellishes the Upanishad or shows us the Upanishad is the Makuta, which is the Shankara Bhashya. And the one that even more adds beauty to that Shankara Bhashya is the Chudamani, which is Viveka Chudamani. Now the greatness of this Grantha that we are entering into is multifold. Firstly, the Vishaya itself. The Vishaya is Vedanta. So the moment I say Vedanta is the Vishaya, that highest knowledge is the Vishaya, that itself lends enough importance to that Grantha. Secondly, it is a Prakarana Grantha. It is an introductory book. The beauty of introductory books or Prakarana Granthas is that they will present the subject in the most simple form and in the most beautiful form. It's much more easier and attractive to understand that Vishaya, much more easier you will get the Vishaya from the Prakarana Grantha than by the Bhashya. Because Bhashya might lead to a lot of confusion. Prakarana Grantha will not introduce too much confusion. The third importance is that this is the Prakarana Grantha of Shankara. What to say of that Acharya who, as we said in the Dhyana Shloka, Shambhor Murtis Charati Bhuvane Shankaracharya Rupa. If that Dakshinamurti himself has come down to become Shankara, see, even the terms Shambhu and Shankara. Shambhu means the one who is the form of happiness. Sham means happiness. Sukha. So one who is in the form of happiness is Shambhu, because the verb there or the Vyakarana is there, bhu, means just to be. That Shambhu became Shankara. The Sham remained the same, but that bhu became Kara. So the one who was sitting started walking. The one who was sitting silently started talking, started writing. So the one who was Achala became Chala, started moving, and that is how that Shiva became Shankara. So what to speak of that Acharya who is Shiva himself and who has returned this Prakarana Grantha? That is the other greatness of this Prakarana Grantha. The other greatness of this Grantha is that we will see, and many of you who have been doing the Parayana of this Grantha or who would have read shlokas from this Grantha, there are certain shlokas or certain verses as you read along. Even when you read the shloka, even without understanding the meaning of the shloka, when you just read through the shloka, you will automatically go into a trance. You will automatically go into a state of meditation. Not because you have understood what is written there, just because that bhasha has got that samadhi inbuilt in it. It is called as samadhi bhasha. Bhagavatam is also said to have samadhi bhasha, because Shuka Brahman says Bhagavatam while in samadhi. Experiencing samadhi at time to time, he says the Bhagavatam, hence that is called as samadhi bhasha. Similarly, the Viveka Chudamani is also having samadhi bhasha. There are many mantras or shlokas, you can call it mantra itself, which will give you that state of meditation even without you understanding what the verse is trying to say. And the last aspect of this greatness of this Grantha is that it has been extolled and worshipped and held in high regard by all the Mahatmas who have come in the Vedanta Parampara. The Shankara Parampara itself, all the Mahatmas have considered that to be great anyways. Especially Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswami of the Sringeri Sharada Peetham. His is the only commentary you have on the Viveka Chudamani. The Samskrita commentary on the Viveka Chudamani that exists today is only of Shankara Bharati Mahaswami. And it is said that even after writing the Bhashya on the Viveka Chudamani, till the end of his life, he lived as a Jivan Mukta. He was a Jivan Mukta. Till the time of his dropping away of his body, every day, at every moment, every bhakta would always find him along with the book of Viveka Chudamani. That means, even after attaining jnana, even after becoming a Jivan Mukta, Acharya used to constantly keep reading the Viveka Chudamani as a swadhyaya. That was the greatness of the Viveka Chudamani. Mahaperiva of Kanchi has held Viveka Chudamani in the highest of the regard. And most of whatever he has said in Daivatin Kural about Vedanta comes from the Viveka Chudamani. Swami Chinmayananda has written an elaborate commentary on the Viveka Chudamani. Swami Ranganathananda of the Ramakrishna Mission has written a beautiful commentary on selected verses of the Viveka Chudamani. Ramana Maharshi, the great Jivan Mukta that we have seen in this last century, has translated the entire Viveka Chudamani into Tamil. So you can understand that so many Mahatmas who are considered Jivan Muktas themselves have considered the Viveka Chudamani a Grantha to be of the highest order, even more than the Bhashya Granthas. That is the greatness of this Grantha that we are planning to look at today and tomorrow. Having said so much about this Grantha, and so many Mahatmas have given Upanyasams on this Grantha, so you really, when you sit with that as the background and you are sitting here to tell about Viveka Chudamani, you are naturally caught by huge feeling of overwhelming and fear that how am I going to even talk about it? It is like when Kalidasa says in the Raghuvamsha, it's a beautiful shloka. When Kalidasa begins the Raghuvamsha, there are some introductory shlokas. In one of this he says, Raghuvamsha, what a great lineage. Starting from Raghu onwards, it's not just Rama, it's not just talking about Rama. Starting from Raghu onwards, it is speaking. And Kalidasa is writing on that. So Kalidasa says, Kwasurya Prabhavo Vamshaha, Kvacha Alpa Vishaya Matihi, Titirshur Dustaram Mohad, Udupe Nasmi Sagaram. That Vamsha, Surya Vamsha, how much of greatness it has. And how much Alpamati am I? How much of little intelligence do I have to talk about that Surya Vamsha? It is like trying to cross that great ocean with a small boat, a Udupa. I am sitting in an Udupa and trying to see that I can cross this huge ocean someday. It's going to be impossible. But I am still wanting to cross this ocean. I am still wanting to say about Raghuvamsha, hence I have embarked on this journey to speak about Raghuvamsha. So on a very similar note, the reason for me to embark on speaking about the Viveka Chudamani is not to say anything more about the Viveka Chudamani which the Mahatmas have already said. But when I share some thoughts on the Viveka Chudamani, I also go into that contemplative mode, to that meditative mode. So I, as a sadhaka, also this becomes my sadhana. Reading the Grantha, if those Mahatmas have been reading this Grantha, I also need to read at least a few of those mantras and contemplate. And while I am contemplating, I am going to be sharing some of those thoughts with all of you. That is what we are going to do today and tomorrow. So it is not an upanyasam in the traditional sense of the term. It is going to be a sharing of thoughts of what the Mahatmas have already said. The Viveka Chudamani, if you look at the structure of the Viveka Chudamani, it has got 580 verses. In some versions, there are 581 verses. It is about the numbering, but largely 580 to 581 verses. So it is a decently long Prakarana Grantha. It is not a very short Grantha. The way the entire Viveka Chudamani is structured as a conversation between the Guru and the Shishya. In the traditional way of the Upanishads. All the Upanishads are conversation between the Guru and the Shishya. So, captured by that, Acharya also designs or models the Viveka Chudamani in a similar fashion. It is also a conversation between the Guru and the Shishya. And Acharya visualizes in a beautiful way. He gives a Upodghata, he gives a few introductory verses. Then he picturizes that Shishya. He picturizes the state of that Shishya. Under what state is that Shishya coming to the Guru? Because there should be a need why the Shishya has come to the Guru. So that state is picturized. Then the Guru's response to the Shishya. And then finally, the state of the Shishya after receiving the Upadesha from the Guru. And finally, a conclusion of what is the benefit of reading the Viveka Chudamani. This is how Acharya structures the entire Viveka Chudamani. Now, when we look at any Grantha, as per the traditional way, you need to know 4 things about the Grantha. These four things are Adhikari, Vishaya, Sambandha, Prayojana. This is called as Anubandha Chatushtaya. Anubandha means any grantha. So if you have to know the details of a grantha, like in today when you publish a book on social media, you give all the details of the book, right? Who is the publisher, what is the ISBN number, etc., etc. Similarly, the Anubandha Chatushtaya tells you in a summary, in a nutshell, a few key details about that grantha. It tells about four things. It tells about the Adhikari, that is who is eligible to read this book. 99.99% of us will get filtered there itself. Second is Vishaya. What is the subject matter of this book? Third is the Sambandha. What is the relationship between the book and the reader? It's a beautiful term. And last is Prayojana. What is the benefit of reading the book? See, Sambandha means if I am preparing a manual on a washing machine, what is the Sambandha of that manual with respect to me? That manual is teaching me how to operate the washing machine. If I am reading a textbook on washing machine, the textbook is not going to teach me how to operate the washing machine. It is telling me what is the physics behind the washing machine. So the Sambandha changes from time to time between the book and me because they are telling different things. So the Sambandha is important to say, what is this relationship between the book and you? In this case, the Adhikari is the Mumukshu, the one who wants to get liberated or one who wants to know, as we said earlier, that source of knowledge, that highest truth, that place that can anchor him. That is what the person wants to know, intense desire to know. That person is the Adhikari. The Vishaya is Brahma Jnana, is Atma Lakshana, is about that highest truth. Sambandha is Bodhya Bodhaka Bhava. It is, the book is the Bodhaka. It is telling you, it is giving you knowledge, and you are the Bodhya. You are the one who is being told that knowledge or being educated in that subject. And the Prayojana is Brahma Jnana Prapti, is to attain that highest truth is the Prayojana of this Grantha. Now let's go into the Grantha. The first shloka says, Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. This is typically called as the Mangala Charana or Mangala Shloka. That is the invocatory verse. The first verse of the Grantha, typically called as the invocatory verse. Generally, these verses, as per the Shastra, have to say one of the three things. They have to be either Ashihi, Namaskriya, Vastu Nirdesha. They have to either give blessings or they have to perform Namaskara to somebody or do invocation to somebody or should speak about the subject matter that is being dealt with in the book. One of these three things should be mentioned. One or more of these three things could be mentioned in the Mangala Shloka. Here, very rarely, here, Acharya it is a Namaskriya Shloka. He is doing Namaskara. Whom is he doing Namaskara to? Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. He is doing Namaskara to Govinda. And he is qualifying Govinda as Sadguru. That means he is invariably talking about his Guru, Govinda Bhagavatpada. There are very rare occasions that Acharya speaks about his Guru. Some say that even Bhaja Govindam is in a way indicating about his Guru as well, because he could have used any other term as well for Krishna. Govinda is not the only term. But Acharya has an affinity towards this term because of his Guru's name as well. So what does he say here? He says, Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam. Gocharam is something that I can know. I am able to perceive. I am able to understand. The one who can be understood only through the Vedanta, Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta. only through the various principles and the tattvas of Vedanta, one who is really known, who cannot be known through any other means, tam agocharam. That Sadguru, not just Guru, he is Sadguru, because a Guru might be showing me or giving me knowledge of various things in the objective world, but the Sadguru has shown me the Sat. He has shown me the highest truth, hence he becomes Sadguru, the Guru who has shown the Sat. Govindam Paramanandam, the one who is the nature of pure bliss. Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. I do my namaskara to that Sadguru and begin this Prakarana Grantha. The very first verse itself, I remember when we were discussing with Mama, Kupuswami Mama said, this one verse itself can go for 2 lectures. So I said, yes, I agree. So I have to control myself and give the essence and keep going ahead. The very first verse, beautiful verse. It says, Jantunam narajanma durlabham ataha pumsatvam tato viprata tasmat Vaidika Dharma Marga Parata Vidvatvam Asmat Param Atmanatma Vivechanam Swanubhavo Brahmatmana Samstitihi Muktirno Shatakoti Janma Sukritaihi Punyair Vina Labhyate. Acharya has encapsulated the whole of what he wants to say in one shloka. And that is the beauty of Acharya. He shows us that you can capture the whole essence of this in one shloka, in ardha shloka, everything. And I can expand it to 580 verses also and give you a Prakarana Grantha, or I can give you a Bhashya also. So that is the subject. That is the nature of this subject of Vedanta. So he begins with Jantunam. He begins with something that we know. He doesn't begin with Brahma because we don't know Brahma. But Jantu we know because we are all Jantus. Jantu is a term generally used in a very derogatory term in certain communities. But Jantu is not a derogatory word. Janana Shilaha, the one who have Janana Shila, one who takes birth is Jantu. So we are all Jantus. The moment you have taken birth means you are a Jantu. So among all those that have taken birth, Jantunam, Narajanma Durlabham, the human birth is rare. Now this itself is a point of deep discussion, but let me say it in summary. There is a beautiful verse of Manikya Vasakar. Many of you might already know it. He says, Pullagi, Pudai, Puruvai, Maramagi, Palvirgamagi, Paravayai, Pambagi, Kallai, Manidarai, Peyai, Ganangalai, Val Asuraragi, Munivarai, Devarai, Sella Nindra Ittavara Jangamattul, Yella Pirappum Piraind Ilaithen Yembaruman. He says, I have gone through countless births, starting from the grass, to the worm, to a bird, to an animal, to a tree, to a stone, to a human, to a rishi, to a deva, to an asura. That means even if you are all these things, still attaining the divine is different. You can be all of these things and still not attain the divine. That is what Manikya Vasakar wants to say. But he says that all these janmas I have gone through. That means it is basically to tell you that Jantunam Narajanma Durlabham. See, our basis of Sanatana Dharma itself is the fact that this is not your only janma. We don't believe in that. Why we don't believe in that? The question is that when you take birth, that Jivan that has taken birth, it is taking birth in a particular circumstance, with a certain, in a certain family, with a certain financial situation, with a certain social situation. What karma did that one Jivan do to attain that phala? It is just born now. A Jantu that is just born could not have done any karma, papa karma or punya karma, to have attained this phala. So how did this phala come to that Jantu? The only rationale is there is some karma that is there behind it. That is the main reason for Purva Janma. Because if that concept is not there, you will not be able to justify, you will not be able to bind the whole thing into a logic of cause and effect. And if you cannot bind anything into a logic of cause and effect, the whole world is just random. It is ad hoc. Anything can happen anytime. Is it possible? Can we survive in such a world? So if you have to look at order, if you have to look at cause and effect, we need to say that many things happening in this Janma are not explicable because there is something behind it. That is the cause for the Purva Janma, and that is where the karma theory comes into the picture. So when you say Nara Janma, it means among the different Janmas, you have taken various Janmas. Out of all those Janmas, now you have landed with Nara Janma. Now what is the speciality of Nara Janma? It is not special from the perspective that you can rule over the world. No. That is the understanding we have had, and that is why we are exploiting the world. That is why we are destroying the world, because we think we are the highest, most evolved beings. That is not the case. Why are we the most evolved beings? Why was it said that we are the most evolved beings? Because it is only in this Janma that you have this Viveka Buddhi, the Buddhi of discrimination, and you have a capacity to go back to the source. The source from which you came, the source of knowledge which I just spoke about, the source of creation. For you to go back to that source, the only possibility is this Janma, because only in this Janma you can think, and with Viveka Buddhi you can overcome your instincts. In all other Janma you are driven by instincts. It is instinctive. Your life is driven by instinct. Animals are driven by instincts. But only in the Nara Janma, even above the instincts, you can apply your Viveka Buddhi and you can decide to go back to the source. That is why it is Nara Janma. That is why it is important. So, Jantunam Nara Janma Durlabham Ataha Pumsatvam. The most controversial topic in Viveka Chudamani is this line. Pumsatvam. Pumsatvam, if you translate in simple terms, it will say a manly body, a man, the body of a man. So the question will be, what is inferior about the body of a woman? This is why you need the right sampradaya to even interpret a shloka like this. You need the support of our acharyas and mahatmas to say what could have been acharya's thought process in saying Pumsatvam. Pumsatvam, many Mahatmas have explained not as the body of a man or Stritvam as woman. Pumsatvam means Paurusham. Paurusham means willpower. The power of determination to do Dhrida Buddhi, that Dhridata, to be able to do what we want to do. That is called Paurusham. So Pumsatvam here refers to Paurusham, not to a man or a woman's body. So you are among the different births, you are born as a human. Even among the humans, you are born as somebody who has got that Paurusham willpower to do or to take an oath or a vrata. Tato Viprata. Having that willpower, you are coming in the right samskara. Viprata, again, it's another controversial topic. It will speak about the caste bias. So the allegations, accusations against Acharya Shankara would be that he is against gender and he is against caste. How can an Acharya who has crossed all these distinctions and reached the Brahman talk about Pumsatvam and Viprata and Brahmanatvam as casteism or gender bias? It is impossible to even think that way. So, what does Viprata mean? There is a shloka, probably in the Manusmriti, which says, Janmana jayate shudraha, karmana dvija uchyate, veda pathanat bhavet vipraha, brahmano brahma vedanat. So, Vipra means one who has come under the influence of the Vedas, the study of the Vedas, the study of the Shastras, the traditional marga, the upbringing is in such a way that the person has been brought up through a very noble upbringing with all the Shastras. So, even today, the modern psychologists and scientists also believe that your upbringing is most influential in what you become and what you are as a person later on. So, the Viprata refers to your upbringing and your growth in that kind of an environment which is full of Shastra. Tasmat Vaidika Dharma Marga Parata. Even after having that kind of an upbringing, we know of many of us who have left the Vedika Marga. Up to a certain age, we are brought up in that scenario, in that environment. But after a point, we ourselves have given up that Vedika Marga. So, one who is constantly there in the Vedika Dharma Marga Parata. Here, Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswami gives a distinction. He says, Acharya did not say Vedika Karma Marga Parata. Why Acharya said Vedika Dharma Marga Parata? Because karma is jada. Let us not bother about what actions you do. It is not about rituals. It is about the essence of the Veda. It is about what does the Vedika Dharma say. What are the messages of the Veda and are you living by that? Are you living your life true to the Veda? That is Vedika Dharma Marga Parata. Vidvatvam Asmat Param. Even if I am living by the Vedika Dharma, do I know the essence behind all of that? See, the first step for all of us is to do what the Shastras tell us. Do this ritual, do that ritual, do this activity, fine. Initial stages it is good, we should do that. But at some point we should give a thought to why are we doing it? What is the essence behind doing it? Is there some symbolism? Is there some rationale for us to do it? If you keep on doing things without asking any question or without understanding what it is till the end of your life, there is no growth or progress. That is not what our Dharma wants us to do. Dharma wants us to understand everything and do it. So Vidvatvam means understanding the true essence and the meaning behind what we are trying to do and what we are trying to live. After that, Atma Anatma Vivechanam. So you are knowing the essence of the Veda and living the life. Slowly and steadily, you know what is the truth and what is the untruth. We will come to this in some time. I will not explain it now. It is a higher state of knowing what is reality and what is non-real. After knowing what is reality and what is non-real, catching hold of that reality and bringing that reality to your experience, to your anubhava, and remaining established in that anubhava, that is Brahmatmana Samstitihi. So the entire life journey, the journey of a jiva is from jantu to Brahmatmana Samstitihi. This is the life of the journey, the jantu. So you are born as a jantu, you can as well die as a jantu. But the growth in you is shown if you are born as a jantu and you die as a Brahmatmana Samstiti. That is the success of life. That is the point when you know that your life is fulfilled. That is the victory of life. Until that thing comes, there will be punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, until you reach that state of Brahmatmana Samstiti. You might be either in the state of jantu, or in the state of narajanma, or in the state of pumsata or viprata. You will be stuck in that state until you progress towards Brahmatmana Samstiti. This cycle of birth and death is not ending. The samsara chakra is not ending. So muktihi, that is what Acharya says, muktihi, that is liberation, that is end of this cycle, will not happen in shatakoti janma sukritaihi punyair vina. In shatakoti janmas, 100 crores of janmas, it will not happen without the punya that is earned. Only through the punyas that are earned in these janmas will you be able to progress further. What do you mean by punya? See, here I would like to clarify one thing. The moment we hear this, the very first thought that would come to our mind is, we are far away from this. Brahmatmana Samstiti is where and where are we? Why should we even think about this? The question is, if you don't think about it, then you stay where you are. If you start thinking about it, at least you start moving at least in incremental terms towards that end state. You know, there is a Subhashita which says that even if it is a Garuda, unless it moves, The ant will reach the destination, the Garuda would have still not reached the destination. The Garuda is the fastest bird, fastest animal, but it should move for it to reach the destination. If it stays in one place, it is not going to reach the destination. So the whole effort is towards making the prayatna. That is why Bhagavan in the Gita says, Swalpam abhyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Swalpam abhyasya. Practice at least a little. See, all the Mahatmas have given us lot of leeway. Nobody has said that you have to do 100 things and then only you will attain and you have to do everything tomorrow. Then we would have anyway not done. That is a different question. But we would have even discarded that Bhagavan, or we would have discarded the Shastra. They have all given us leeway to say that doesn't matter. In this Janma you are not doing, do it in the next Janma. Krishna even goes to the extent to say, whatever you do in this Janma will not go for waste. It will stay as a bank deposit. It will get deposited in your Punya Papa account. The next Janma you will begin from there and you will progress. What more assurance do you want to get to this marga of dharma, to this marga of Vedanta Vichara? When you know that every progress that you make in this Janma is going to be preserved and deposited and is going to lead to a much better life in the next Janma, we must make all efforts, as Acharya is urging us, to make towards the mukti. Now Acharya says, he himself is giving that sentence of assurance or sentence of consolation. Durlabham trayameva. He says it's durlabha. Don't be sad that you are not able to do it. It is indeed rare. It is very durlabha. Three things are very durlabha. Deva anugraha hetukam. Only by the divine grace will you get these three things. What are these? Manushyatvam, mumukshutvam, mahapurusha samshrayaha. Manushyatvam does not mean just being born as a man, having the qualities of a man, being human in its truest sense of the term. Manushyatvam is rare because all of us might be in the form of a human being, but we may not be in having the qualities of a human being. So what is the humane quality? What are the human qualities that we need to cultivate? Manushyatvam. Mumukshutvam, the desire to know that highest truth. And the last and the most important, Mahapurusha Samshrayaha. This is probably the most attractive option among the three, because there are so many stories of people having attained great things, greatness, just in the presence of great people. Just in the presence of greatness, they attain great things. You would have yourself realized that when you want to do meditation or when you want to do some kind of dhyana, when you sit in certain places, dhyana never comes to you. You're always disturbed. Your mind is always disturbed. But there are certain places, there are certain locations, there are certain tirthas where you go, even without you wanting for it, you automatically go into a state of peace. You automatically go into a state of meditation. Very simply, when you go to a seashore and watch the ocean and the waves, your mind automatically gets placated. When you go to the tirtha kshetras, which are sanctified by the greatness of great people, your mind automatically gets meditative. These are called as vibhutis. And this is what Krishna says, Bhagavan says in the Gita, the Vibhuti Yoga. What is the importance of the Vibhuti Yoga? When Krishna says that, among the mountains I am the Himavan, or among the rivers I am Ganga, what does he want to say? Does he want to say Ganga is better than others? Nothing of that sort. He just wants to tell you that these are natural aids to samadhi. These are natural support systems to meditation. So if you are not able to get meditation by yourself, go to these places. These places will help you. So when you do dhyana, when you do japa, when you do your spiritual practices in these places, the energy of the place will add. It will support you. It will not discourage you. That is the greatness of these vibhutis, these tirtha kshetras. And that is why tirthathana is an important aspect of our lives. In our lives, tirthathana or pilgrimage, why do we consider it as an important aspect of our life? It is not a journey, right? It is not a seeking journey where you are just doing it as a pleasure trip. It is not a pleasure trip. The reason why it was recommended in olden days was for exactly this reason, because there are certain places that are naturally more endowed with that spiritual energy. So these three things have to be constantly sought for. When a Mahapurusha comes, when a great Mahatma comes, make an attempt to go to that place, make an attempt to take their darshana, make an attempt to be in their presence, and try to do your spiritual activities. We know of the story of Ratnakara, the thief, the dacoit Ratnakara, just because of his Mahapurusha Samshraya with Narada, he got transformed into Valmiki. And there are so many such stories where a person of the lowest order, or having performed the most criminal crimes or the wicked crimes, when coming in contact with Mahapurushas, you know the story of Angulimala and Gautama Buddha. When he comes in contact with Gautama Buddha, he gets transformed and falls at the feet of Gautama Buddha. So that is the effect or impact of Mahapurushas. Now Acharya says, now he is trying to give a bit of a more threatening tone. Acharya gets into a threatening zone. He says, Labdhva katanchit narajanma durlabham tatrapi pumsatvam shrutipara darshanam yastva atma muktau na yetata moodhadihi sahi atmaha swam vinihanti asadgrahat. He says, even after attaining all those narajanma, pumsatva, viprata, everything, even then if you don't attain or making an attempt towards knowing the highest truth, you are committing spiritual suicide. You know, we commonly use the term Atma Hanana, Atma Hatya for suicide. But in spiritual terms, they say killing of the body is not Atma Hatya. Because, see, that is the nuance in that. In our Shastra, Atma Hatya is not prescribed. It is not recommended at all under any circumstance. Why? Because by Atma Hatya, you don't do anything. Because your Punarjanma is anyway there. Then what are you doing Hatya of? Even if you do Hatya of this physical body, a new physical body is going to come. You are only accelerating that process towards the next physical body. And some more desires will come along with it. So Atma Hatya is the law, is not even a recommended option in our Shastras. Our Shastras say, whatever the karma you have done, the phala you have to anyway enjoy, whether good or bad. Until your karma gets over or karma phala gets over, you have no right to take your life. Your life has to end naturally when the karma is over. That is the natural death. That is only the way the death will happen or has to happen. You have no right to take it, because the moment you take it, the karma comes with even greater force into your next janma. So it is not ending anywhere. The dukkha is not ending. So Atma Hatya is not even an option. But here, Shankaracharya uses the term Atma Hanana because you are not making an attempt to realize the highest truth even after getting the Narajanma and even after getting all the benefits that he spoke about earlier. And he uses the term Moodadhi. That seems to be a very favorite term of Acharya. Moodha. That is the biggest bad word that Acharya can give is Moodha. He says, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Moodhamate. So Moodha is the highest kind of curse that, or bad word that Acharya will give. Is that, oh fool, oh ignorant one. And that is the same term he uses even in the next shloka. Now he says, and this is again something that might be interesting. He says, Vadantu shastrani yajantu devan, kurvantu karmani bhajantu devataha, atmaikya bodhena vinapi muktihi, na siddhyati brahma shatantarepi. Very interesting shloka. He says, Vadantu shastrani, you say shastras, you learn the shastras, yajantu devan, you worship all the devatas, all the gods and goddesses. Kurvantu karmani, do all kinds of karmas. Homas, yajna, yagas, do everything. Bhajantu devataha, worship anybody. keep on worshipping. How much ever you do all these things, without knowing that highest truth and becoming one with that highest truth, you are not going to get liberated. The question will come then, should we not do all these things? Then why don't we give it up? Why are we doing all this karma yaga? Why are we sitting in the temple? Why are we doing the puja? It is a basic contradiction, isn't it? It is not a contradiction, because it depends upon the adhikari. I told you earlier itself, the adhikari here is the mumukshu, the one who is already burning desire to know. So Acharya is keeping that mumukshu in mind and telling this. He is not telling you and me, because as I said, if we apply the eligibility criteria of Acharya, we will all be disqualified. None of us qualify for even reading one sloka of this Prakarana Grantha. But despite of that, because of his immense compassion, we are still reading it. Because of his grace, the Mahatmas have been doing Upanyasams and we have been reading this. So, this is not for everybody. In the initial stages, you have to learn the Shastras. You have to do Devata Radhana. You have to do Vaidika Karmas. And later on, Acharya will speak about it as well. All these are needed. But the purpose behind all this should be very clear. If you are coming to the temple to do puja, to do archana of Bhagavan, just because you want to get more wealth and more yashas in the world, you are as well in the pravritti marga. You are as well in the world. Where are you in the spiritual world? Just because you have come to a temple doesn't mean you are come to spirituality. That is what Acharya makes it very clear. Just because you wear the vibhuti bhasma, or you are doing rudraksha dharana, or you are speaking about anything, doesn't mean you are spiritual. What is the intent behind all this is important. Are you doing all this with an intent to finally come to the path of spirituality? But unfortunately, you are not able to come today because of n number of reasons. But there is the burning desire inside you to come to this path. That intent is what is more important. But if the intent is to constantly keep remaining in the world, making more and more money, getting more and more fame and name, the intent itself is wrongly placed. That is not spiritual path. That is worldly path. So that distinction is made very clear by the Acharya. That is not nivritti marga, that is pravritti marga only. And that pravritti marga will continue as long as you don't get this intent. And this intent does not come to everybody. That also is clear. So we need to understand what is the meaning of the spiritual world, or meaning of entering into spirituality. I will skip a few shlokas. And there is also this famous verse which all of us would have heard in different contexts. Na karmana na prajaya dhanena tyage amritatvaman ashuhu. Amritatvam cannot come through na karmana, na prajaya, na dhanena, tyage naike amritatvaman ashuhu. Only through renunciation, only through giving up everything will you get amritatva, not through any karma, not through any of the prajas or procreation or any kind of dhana that you have. So that also adds to the storyline that we were just speaking about. The next part, Acharya says, he uses a very similar verse from the Bhagavad Gita. So, as we are on this spiritual path, or as we are on this path towards spirituality, we are at some stage. But constantly we are faced with challenges. Constantly we are faced with obstacles. And we become demotivated. We become depressed. We want to do something, but it is not happening. We want to go there, it is not happening. What do we do? So Acharya says, Uddharet Atmanatmanam. Krishna says, Uddharet Atmanatmanam, na Atmanam avasadayet, Atmaiva Hyatmano Bandhuhu, Atmaiva Ripur Atmanaha. Taking the same beginning, Acharya says, Uddharet Atmanatmanam Magram Samsara Varidhau Yogarudatvam Asadhya Sambyak Darshana Nishtaya. He says, when you are falling away, when you feel that you are going away from the path, you are the only one who can bring yourself back. Nobody else you can depend upon to bring you on the right path. You have to yourself assess what is happening. Why did I fall down? What caused the fall of the down? And you have to completely bring back to that nishtha. You have to do the self-audit, self-assessment at every point of time and bring yourself back on the track. And to do that, you have to keep certain anchor points. See, that is why Acharya uses the term nishtha here. See, we use this term anusthana. That is a term we very commonly hear. What is the meaning of anusthana and why we should do anusthana? In the beginning stages of our spiritual life, and even maybe towards the last stages, anusthana is something which all the acharyas have said that you are not supposed to give up. Don't give up anusthana. Why? Because the anusthana means, the word itself means anusthana. It is the word, the dhatu, there is tha, to remain firmly established. Sthirata, to remain at one place, again and again. That is anusthana. Anu means to follow. So at one place, at one single thing, you are doing that at the same time, at the same place, every day. There is a constancy. It could be a 15-minute prayer that you are doing, or a 15-minute worship that you are doing. It is good, but do that worship every day, at the same time. Then your body, your system, your mind gets used to that. Slowly and steadily, even without your knowledge, your entire system will start getting calmed by that one anusthana. That one anusthana is enough to bring your entire anchor down to one place. The importance is not of doing too many anushtanas. Nobody is asking you to do 5 hours and 6 hours of japa. Doing one day and then the next 5 days you are not doing doesn't work. You do 15-minute japa or a 10-minute japa, but do it every day. That is what Patanjali Maharshi says in the Yoga Sutra. He says, Chitta Vritti Nirodha. That is what you should do. How to do Chitta Vritti Nirodha? You have to remove all the kleshas. Then only the Chitta Vritti Nirodha will happen. How to remove the klesha? Abhyasa Vairagya Bhyam, he says. You should do abhyasa. What is abhyasa? Dirghakala Nairantarya Satkara Sevita Dridabhumihi. He says, you keep doing the same thing, Dirghakala, for a long period of time. Nairantarya, every day. Keep doing that Satkara. Then the Dridabhumi, that Anushtana itself becomes very strong. And that Anushtana will lead your spiritual path. That is the nuance of spiritual path. The nuance of spiritual path is not to remain 24/7 in dhyana or japa. Nobody is asking you to do that. We all know we cannot do that. Even a small Anushtana done every day. So what Acharya says here is that take up some of that Anushtanas, that Nishtha, as your anchor point and bring back yourself. Even if you are fallen off, even if you are going away, for that Anushtana time you have to get yourself back. That will bring you back to track. It will bring you back on the spiritual path. So in this way, Acharya in the initial shlokas, he keeps giving a summary, a sort of a gist of the entire aspect of Viveka Chudamani. And then he picturizes. He picturizes the scene where the disciple or the Shishya is coming to the Guru. As I said, that is the entire Viveka Chudamani. It is the conversation between the Shishya and the Guru. So he says, Samasadya Daya Sindhum Gurum Brahma Viduttamam. Who should come? That Adhikari, that Shishya, should approach the Guru, who is a Daya Sindhu, who is an ocean of compassion, and the complete knower of Brahman. Such a Guru is approached by that disciple. Why does he say the Guru is Daya Sindhu? Because the Guru, once he has attained that supreme knowledge, there is no need for him to keep answering your questions. Why does he need to answer your questions? He is not obligated to answer your questions or to answer your doubts. He is doing that because of compassion. He is doing that because he sees that there is a mumukshu here who is burning, who is wanting to get liberated. Hence, out of immense compassion of that Guru, the Guru is coming down and trying to give the knowledge of the highest truth or the self to the Shishya. So with this, we will conclude for today, and tomorrow we will begin with what is the nature or the qualifications of the Shishya, what kind of Shishya was this, what is the qualification or the nature of the Guru, what were the questions asked by the Shishya, and how did the Guru respond to that. In a way, a large part of the essence of the Viveka Chudamani is what we will speak of tomorrow. Today was largely to set the context, the background, and get an introduction into the Shastra. Yontah pravishya mamavacha vimam prasoptam sanjeevayati akhila shakti dharaswadamnam anyam cha hasta charana shravanatvagadin pranan namo bhagavate purushaya dompim. Om purnamadaha purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.